This is the Labor Day matinee? Yeah, okay. This is the Labor Day matinee, I Am The Wiz. Okay, so I didn't do a Sunday matinee. I couldn't come up with a topic, and I actually wanted to watch something, and by the time that I got to do it, it was a little too late for me to record. So I am recording on Labor Day right now. It's Monday. And for the Labor Day matinee, I'm going to review the 2023 summer blockbuster movie that just came into streaming recently, and that is The Flash, starring Ezra Miller, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, Sasha Calle, and Maribel Verdot, directed by Andres Muschietti. Let me get started with my thoughts on what I felt like before going into the movie. I mean, I try not to pay attention to reviews too much until I actually go after I watch the movie. But this movie was really hard not to pay attention to the opinions of, because this was a fairly big deal when it came out in, I think it was July. And mainly because the word of mouth was very mixed on this movie. Critics seem to be okay with it. It has right down the middle, I should say. It's got a Metacritic score of 55, so that's not entirely hot. IMDb has a rating of 6.8. It's not something that really got a lot of good word of mouth, but I like to give these movies a chance. But I also thought that the reason why this probably is getting such terrible word of mouth is because of Ezra Miller and everything that Ezra did in the past 2 years leading up to the release of this movie, and all the talk about how there are so many troubles with the script, so many troubles with directors, so many troubles with, well, Ezra, both on the set and off. I thought a lot of that was coloring the opinions of a lot of people who just don't like Ezra. So I still wanted to give this movie a shot, especially since, really, to be absolutely honest with you, with the DC Extended Universe movies, I think I've only liked Wonder Woman, which I really liked, and Man of Steel. And the rest of them, I haven't seen Aquaman, and I haven't seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I'm probably never going to see the Zack Snyder's Justice League. My reason basically is I absolutely hated the Justice League one that Joss Whedon did, and apparently that's just a bump up of that movie. So with that, I'm like, yeah, I don't need to see that. If it's anything like that movie, forget it. I want nothing to do with it, to be absolutely honest. But yeah, the rest of the DC movies, well, okay, I forgot about The Suicide Squad, which is the James Gunn Suicide Squad movie. That was actually pretty good. That was actually very good. So, yeah, so like 3 of them I actually liked, and the rest I did not like at all. I thought they were pretty bad. I think me and Zero reviewed Black Adam recently, and that was very meh at best. What was my thoughts on The Flash? Well, let's find out. Let me get to the review of The Flash, directed by Andres Muschietti. Oh man, this was a painful watch. Wow. The Flash had a lot of problems right from the jump, and the main problem I'm gonna cite here, immediately when I watched the movie, the CGI and the special effects were terrible. They looked so bad. They made everything look plasticky and look like they were not part of the actual set of the movie. I'm gonna bet this is all green screen, which, okay, fine. That's how they're doing these movies nowadays, but it was really obvious when something was being done with computer-generated effects, CGI, and stuff like that. And one of the big ones when I was watching this movie that looked awful is when they were trying to do computer-generated people. It looked so damn plasticky. It looked so damn fake. It was just really bad. And the other special effects as well, Barry going in and out of different time spaces, it looked awful. It was really distracting to watch. It reminded me of the special effects on Thor: Love and Thunder. And if you have seen that, you'll understand where I'm coming from. It looked really bad. Maybe not as bad as Thor: Love and Thunder, but close. Yeah, it was painful to watch. That's not even the crux of it. Like, there were so many problems with this movie. So why don't I do this? I'm going to just state my positives on this one, and there's going to be light spoilers. I don't think I'm going to do a full spoiler section. and then I'll just go right down to the negatives. So let's go to the positives real quick. Okay. Okay, no, really, there are a couple positives. I want to say, first off, Sasha Calle as Supergirl was actually pretty good. I actually liked her in this. I liked what they did with Supergirl. I liked the look. I like how the actress was in this movie. I think she performed the part very well. Almost to a point where I kind of wish they had a Supergirl movie for her. Like, I actually really liked her in this movie. And, of course, I also liked Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne at a certain point in the movie. He was actually pretty good, but it was really like a nostalgia thing, really. I don't think it was really Michael Keaton really batting 1,000 and doing a really good performance. I think it was just give us the lines, remind us of old Batman from the 80s, and you're set. And that was it with that. And honestly, it was fine. It was pretty good. But like, as much as I did like Michael Keaton coming back as Batman for this, it didn't have the power and what I wanted from it. It really just felt like, hey, isn't it cool that Michael Keaton's Batman again? I'm like, yeah, it was. And that's it. That's all it was. And that in itself is pretty disappointing. It was cool seeing him as Batman. On the other hand, it's like I really would have wanted more out of that. Those are the positive things that I actually liked. And, yeah, that's it. Those are the positives. Let's get to the negatives. Oh, boy. First off, I already went into the special effects. I think they're terrible. I think I read somewhere that the director said special effects being that way was purposeful. That it was meant to be awkward. It was meant to be weird. It was meant to be like... And when I heard that and I watched this movie, I was like, no, this is not good. Because even if you want to excuse that, oh, the director meant it for it to be this way, it doesn't really help that I'm watching a movie and saying these special effects are terrible, and the director goes, well, I meant for them to be terrible. I'm like, okay, dude, that's not really a good thing. That's not good. The one big thing that I caught right away was the plasticky feel of human characters if they were CGI created. It felt completely unnatural. And I think that's the main thing that I did not like about the special effects. It felt unnatural. And I know some of you are going to point out, like, well, do the Marvel movies feel natural? Do any of these special effects films feel natural? In the state that the film is in, yes. There is a language in the film in these films that makes these special effects feel blended into the movie, so it actually feels like it's part of that world. And The Flash never had that. It always felt like I am looking at terrible CG, or I'm looking at something that is so obviously computer generated, or just something that feels wildly off from the rest of the film. Like, the film has, I would say, a definite problem when it comes to the visual language, because it goes through all these different things over and over again that I just did not help with the overall feel of the film. Big example I can give is the chronosphere sequence at the end, where the infinite timelines seem to crash into each other. And that scene was so busy looking, and it looked so bad. it looked really bad. Like, they had CGI characters. It looked like Christopher Reeve, George Reeves. It looked like the old Flash from the TV series, the very old TV series with the helmet, and like, it looked awful. I looked at it and goes, oh my God, could they not do another pass on this budget just to make this look a little more authentic? It really looked awful. About maybe, I'd say a few weeks ago, this scene went viral on X or Twitter or whatever. And it was just the scene of the chronosphere, everything crashing into each other. And I looked at it and goes, there's no way this is part of this movie. And sure enough, it was. And I looked at that and went, good Lord, that is awful. That is, oh man, that was so bad. It was so terrible. With the action being mostly CG, and the CG looking pretty bad, that is really a bad thing. That is not good for most of the film. So with that, you would hope that, okay, so the CGI is terrible. Maybe the characters are good. Maybe the writing is good. Maybe that could save the movie. No, not happening. Not happening at all. Let's get into, I think, what is the biggest problem with this movie, and that's Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller plays Barry Allen in two different timelines. So the movie goes where Barry basically is having a crisis of faith because his father is having an appeal, and he's probably going to stay in prison for the rest of his life. If you don't know the story of the Flash, Flash's mom was killed one night by some mysterious reasons, and his father was blamed for the murder, and he went to jail. And then after a mix of chemicals and lightning, Barry Allen turns into the Flash. And basically what happens from there is the Flash moves really fast and he fights crime and yada, 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 whatever. Okay, so that's the basis right there. In this movie, what Barry decides to do is to go back in time, because he realizes now that he's so fast he can go turn back in time. He decides to go back in time and stop his mother from being killed so he can have his family back. And of course, in every tropish time travel movie, you change one thing, it changes everything from the future. And what happens is basically he changes everything from then on. Mother is alive and everything, and then everything changes to the point where now General Zod is alive again, and he's about to terraform Earth like he did in Man of Steel, and Barry has to figure out a way to stop him and get the Justice League back and stop this from happening. Now that I have went through the entire plot, let me tell you why Ezra Miller's performance is really not good. First off, when Ezra is playing Barry Allen in the beginning of the movie, he's an awkward, isolated, very antisocial type of person, which honestly, Ezra Miller couldn't play this. I could not believe the character he was playing in this one. You were supposed to sympathize with Barry throughout the entire film and what he's going through. I just found him to be annoying, whiny, and just someone I just did not want to sit through. I was like, oh god, this is awful. So I sat there watching the movie and I was like, this is not great. This is not good. So then he goes back into time, meets his parents and everything, and is introduced to Barry from that time, which is a Barry that is annoying, dumb, happy, and basically obnoxious. And Ezra Miller is worse as this character. Basically, you're having Ezra Miller play two characters that I don't think Ezra Miller can play. Now, I'm going to point out right now, I haven't seen what is Ezra Miller's, I think it's Ezra Miller's two best performances, which is Perks of a Wallflower, which I've heard is very good, and we need to talk about Kevin, which I've heard is also really good. So I haven't seen those performances, but I have seen all the performances that he's done so far, not probably all of them, but most of the performances Ezra Miller has done so far as Barry Allen in the DCEU universe. And I have to question why they chose Ezra Miller for this role. Ezra Miller, not sympathetic at all, not likable, has no charisma in either instances of being Barry Allen. And the fact that he is the vast majority of this film makes this film really hard to watch. And if I can't sympathize with the main characters, I should say, it's really hard for me to get invested, especially when the action and the CGI is literally bad. Literally bad. And as I'm watching the film, and I'm about an hour and a half in, and I'm saying to myself, would this movie been better if it was Grant Gustin who was doing this role? Now, Grant Gustin, if you don't know who he is, he played the Flash in the CW series. Now, I know that the CW DC series now has a terrible reputation to the point now where I think they're all done now. I think there's a Superman one that's still going on, but other than that, the rest of them are done. And the quality dipped horrendously. But I will say this, out of any of the DC CW shows, the first season of The Flash was the best. And it was mainly because Grant Gustin played Barry Allen in The Flash really well. He was charming, he was charismatic, and he can also make you feel for him, and it was also funny in certain spots. I sat here going, just had this mental exercise in myself when I was watching The Flash, going, would it have been better if Grant Gustin was in the role? And after the movie, I said to myself, no, it wouldn't have worked. Because the other problem The other big problem that this movie has is that the writing is awful. I've already mentioned both Barry Allen's are pretty much unlikable. I think the big problem that the film had is that they made this into a comedy film, which I don't understand why. You're having a main character who is morose and just very unhappy. That's your main character, and you're trying to turn this into a light comedy? I don't understand that at all. To me, that was the decision that I was watching this going, hey, you're trying to give this character some depth and some pathos, and it's not working because now you're treating him like a silly comic character. And it doesn't work. And then when you get to the obnoxious Barry, who is a complete dumbass, he doesn't say anything funny either. He's just not funny at all. He's just, again, incredibly annoying. I could not believe how much I was watching this movie and going, oh my God, stop. I don't want to hear any of this dialogue. Even with the characters I like, even with Supergirl, even with Batman, with Bruce Wayne as Batman, even as Ben Affleck as Batman, and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, even those scenes and their writing and their dialogue was bad. The comedy that they were trying to implement in this movie, trying to generate laughs, just did not work with the story that they were going through. I really just didn't understand the tone as what they're going through, because they were trying to ping pong to serious to comic, serious to comic, and it just didn't work. And I think that is one big problem with this movie. So when you have the comedy doesn't work and it shifts to drama with characters that I don't care about and actually dislike, the drama then becomes pretty much pointless and ineffective, except for when you get Supergirl and Batman involved. Those are the only times that I think the movie is actually a good watch. Unfortunately, it is about 20 minutes of the film in a 2.5-hour film. With that, it was just, oh wow, this is not good. This is really a painful watch. Then the one big problem I had with this film is that the way that the film ends, it makes me question exactly what they were thinking moving forward from this movie. Basically, what happens, like in all time travel movies, you can't change it back. Nothing changes back. So essentially, Ezra Miller's Flash character is now in a whole other timeline. So how is that going to work with the rest of the DCEU? Now, I know now the DCEU is finished after the new Aquaman. I know that we're never going to find out. But that was like the big question I had after this was, so wait a minute. The way you ended this makes it seem like Flash is going to be on his own thing moving forward. So what was the point? Honestly, what it seemed like, because apparently this went through about 6 or 7 writers, and honestly, it feels like it did. But what it feels like to me, they had the first draft, and it was poor. But the producer probably liked certain aspects of it. They probably liked the time travel aspect. So we need to keep that, but everything else we have to change. So they got another writer do something else with his little spin. And then they got another writer do a little spin. And then probably the producer said, okay, take elements from A, B, and C, give me another writer to just smash it into D. And that's how this film feels. Except the writer they chose literally just ripped up pieces of the screenplay, glued it with Elmer's glue, and then boom, that's your screenplay. That's how this film feels like. I can't say it's utterly painful to watch. The Justice League was an utterly painful film to watch. But this one was just so lacking in fun entertainment and just an overall good. The life of the film, the enjoyment of the film was sapped from like 15 minutes in. I'm shocked exactly by how bad this movie is. Utterly shocked. Honestly, I came out of this wondering, is this worse than Justice League? And it took me about an hour to just say to myself, no, not really. But the fact that I actually had to really think about that and go, oh, actually, Justice League didn't do that. Well, actually, Flash, like, that's saying something. That Joss Whedon's Justice League and The Flash are comparable in how bad they are. Like, that to me is like, whoa, that's absolutely all. All right, so final thoughts. Oh, boy. Final thoughts. The 20 minutes of good does not help the over 2 hours of bad in this movie. And honestly, this movie has done one thing for me. It makes me glad that the DCEU is probably going away, and that probably these characters are going away too. I really hope, honestly, that these characters are going away. Ezra Miller is, I want to say miscast, but honestly, Ezra is just bad in this role, in both roles. Ezra can't make either character or either form of character in Barry Allen likable in the slightest sense or sympathetic. It was actually just not really a lot of fun to watch. And with the main character being the big problem, along with terrible CGI and action scenes that really don't do anything that are exciting or even entertaining, you have a disaster of a film. I would say that I would like to see Sasha Calle as Supergirl again, and I liked seeing Michael Keaton as Batman again, but that doesn't outweigh the fact that the rest of the film is utter trash. It is absolutely awful. I am going to give this a half star out of 5. It's getting the same rating I would give Justice League from Joss Whedon, but I'm still going to say that I think that Justice League is a worse film than The Flash. The Flash is a dumpster fire. And I debated on giving it 1 star because I did like Sasha Calle and Michael Keaton. There are positives, but honestly, that would also say that me giving it that 1 star would make me feel like you should watch it for those 2. And I would say, no, don't do it. Like, it's not worth it, unfortunately. Again, I really wish I could see Sasha Calle as Supergirl again. She actually was good. I actually liked her in this. But the negatives far outweigh the positives, and it's just a painful watch to sit through. That is a half star out of 5 for me for The Flash. Oh my God, this was awful. I could not believe how bad this was.